evening. Tonight, as we wait for the return of our hero, Wing Commander Abhinandan, he will be home tomorrow. And of course, it has been a grueling time, a test of nerves and emotions for his family. But along with that announcement of his release, Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, also attempted to appear as the bigger man, advocating peace in the region. Now, this isn't the first time he has done so. In his maiden speech, as he became the Prime Minister of Pakistan last year, he offered to hold talks and dialogue with India. But what happened then? It was followed up with a series of terror attacks and uncertainty being created in our Kashmir. And now again. So tonight, the question, viewers, that I am asking is, can the Pakistani Prime Minister really be trusted with his peace offer? Can he be taken seriously? And I'm going to present several arguments over the course of next 1 hour. Here is argument number 1. Can he really be trusted? What is it that the Pakistan has claimed in the last 2 days? They claimed that they shot down 2 Indian aircraft, that they have 2 Indian pilots in their custody. Then they later went back on that and they said, oh no, we have 1 Indian pilot in our custody. What is the fact? That only 1 MiG-21 was shot down, that too because our jet chased the F-16 of Pakistan back into their territory and shot it down. Only 1 pilot was in Pakistan's custody, the one they have now agreed to release. In fact, the Indian Army saw 2 parachutes falling into the POK, supposedly of the F-16 that India shot down. What was the other set of claims that Pakistan made? Pakistan said, we intentionally dropped our payload, our weapons, in an open space when we carried out the strikes yesterday morning because we didn't want to target any civilian population. What is the fact? Pakistani aircraft were attempting to target our military installations. What is the fact? That our jets intercepted them at the right time and chased them back, and in that hurry, those bombs were dropped at the wrong location and did not manage to cause any damage. What was the other lie? Pakistan said we didn't use F-16s. We were trying to fire from our own side of the territory towards the Indian side. And today in the evening, at the joint news briefing by our services, our armed forces, we showed them the evidence. Debris, parts of the F-16 that was used by Pakistan, recovered on our soil, on our territory after we shot it down. That's this argument number 1. If Pakistan was really serious about peace talks, then would it really be attacking India on the other side? Let's say good evening to our panelists. Major General S.V. Thapliyal joining us this evening. Mr. Anil Trigunyat, former diplomat. Lieutenant General V.P. Singh also with us this evening. Amit Barwa, resident editor with The Hindu. Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, and with me in my studios, Vinay Tiwari, our consulting editor. And let me take this question to our military experts first. And Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, your view, if there are aerial strikes being conducted, if we find debris of a Pakistani jet on our territory, does that seem like a country that's interested in peace?
Certainly not. What is the Pakistani F-16 doing in Indian territory when they have given an absolute approval to, they have agreed to America that they will not use these F-16s against Indian armed forces. They were given for them to have some separate purpose against terrorism. And if they are found using it, it means they have to answer for it. And the debris has been found now. Not only this, the AMRAAM missile, which only F-16 fires, is only in the inventory of F-16, has also been located. So their lie has been nailed. They have no choice but to now agree that they have not played the game as per the rules, and they are up to a mischief, and they will have to answer it now.
Right. In fact, let me also bring in Mr. Anil Trigunes from a former diplomat's point of view. Mr. Trigunes, what do you think? What did you make of what Imran Khan said today, the kind of comments he made in his maiden speech? And of course, that didn't really translate into action. And yet again today, he said, I want to talk about peace. I'm ready to talk about terror. Don't do any, don't resort to or go down the war path. Should we take him seriously?
Well, Faye, as you know that from the day that Imran Khan came to power, he has been talking about some kind of peace with India, some kind of a dialogue with India. He's been inviting like that. But as you mentioned yourself, every time that this thing happened, we always had a terrorist attack across India. And the most recent one was Pulwama, which had now triggered the attacks in Pakistan and decimating of the Jaish-e-Mohammed outfit there, and subsequently the Pakistani ingression into our territory. Now, this has been, as you know, there are more of PSYOPs, as they call them, or a disinformation campaign, which is a part of any conflict situation, and which is what precisely the Pakistani army and the Pakistani PR machinery has been doing it. But that tends to do more damage than it does any good service for a statement which apparently looks like a good one from his side. But as I mentioned yesterday, that one of the goodwill gesture that Pakistan could indulge in was essentially to return our pilot who has been in their custody with dignity and in good health. And apparently he has now in the parliament, he decided to do it very quickly, and which is something, a good gesture, but he called it as a peace gesture. Now, the problem was not this pilot. The problem was essentially the terrorists, which has been continuing for last 3 decades against India. And India was forced to take these kind of measures, whether it was Uri or whether it was this current one. But at the same time, Pakistan, you mentioned whether he can be trusted. The thing is that Pakistan, Imran Khan, now what kind of a voice he has? Is he still the HMV of the military or the intelligence in the country? If that is so, then why is it that we are continuing to have conflagration across the line of control through the last and so many 35 or so incursions into the Indian territory? So he has to control all that in the first place. Secondly, in my view, it is very important that he has mentioned about Jaish-e-Mohammed finally in the parliament, but that in their own assembly. But I think that they have to bring them to control those or decimate them from their territory. Otherwise, India or some other countries will continue to attack them and do this, which has been done by the United States in the past. And this time India has successfully done so twice, not once.
Okay, in fact, I also wanted to bring out a second aspect, which is on the ceasefire violations. But before that, quick response from Vinay Tiwari also. Vinay, do you think Imran Khan needs to do a lot more? Maybe deliver on a few of the other things we've been demanding on action against terror before the world, including India, can take him seriously on this?
Well, I mean, every single head of Pakistani state should have had to do more, frankly. I mean, and I'm afraid my view is a little more extreme than that. You know, when Pakistani announcements or claims of peace are a lot like airline announcements. You hear them very often. You probably hear them more than once a day, but nobody pays any attention to it because they don't really mean anything, and nobody understands a word of their peace offer ever. And that's one. The other thing is, when Imran Khan had just taken, I think somebody mentioned it, had just taken oath and he had started addressing, he spoke about building a new Pakistan, and he also spoke about building a new so-called era of relationship with India. But look what happened. Pulwama did happen, right? I mean, that's not exactly carrying on with what you promised. So if that promise can be broken within a few months, why would any one of us believe a fresh promise that he's made on the floor of his parliament today? The fact of the matter is that Imran Khan is as much of a puppet as they come. I mean, he was propped up by the army during campaigning. The Taliban and the hardliners have been supporting him in his campaign, and he's pretty much a hostage to what they feel like doing. I mean, I hate to point this out, but yesterday's address, the reaction that came from him, the video that was released has edit cuts in it. It's so amateurish. You can actually see that somebody's edited the video that has been recorded by the Prime Minister's office. Which other democracy will you see where the army will edit out and cut certain points and comments that a Prime Minister has made? So I'm sorry, but I have very little faith on any comment that comes in terms of peace overtures. This is part and parcel of their machinery. This is the way the army in Pakistan operates, and it is way too deep in their DNA for any Prime Minister to come and say, oh, but he can ensure peace on the basis of talks at the table.
In fact, here is the second argument. Now, what happened this evening was when we had that news briefing by our forces and their representatives, they gave us evidence and step-by-step details of what really has Pakistan been up to in the last couple of days. So it's not just the airstrike that they attempted yesterday morning. They've also been constantly resorting to ceasefire violations. Now, Pakistan says that India is the one that has been provoking us, and we are the ones who actually want to have a dialogue, and we are releasing a soldier as a peace gesture. Here are the facts. There have been over 35 ceasefire violations in just the last 48 hours, and roughly about 2,900 of these cross-border shelling incidences. It's really pointless at this point to even call it a ceasefire violation, because where is the ceasefire in 2018? So that's the figure. Those are the facts. So then, General Thapliyal, when Imran Khan says that I want to talk peace with you, how does the army view it when there is cross-border shelling still on?
As has already been said by the other speakers, what Imran Khan says it lacks sincerity, because everybody knows that he is a puppet of the Pakistan army and acts accordingly. So the other point is that he is not addressed the core issue. The core issue between India and Pakistan is terror. And our stand on this is very clear and consistent. We've been saying that he must dismantle the terror apparatus over there, and then only talks can start. And I'm sure this will continue even if he has a telephonic conversation with our Prime Minister. He's going to be told the same thing. Secondly, we still reserve the right to strike at the terrorist camps or their training establishments or even their headquarters in Bahawalpur if any more terror attacks takes place in India. And I'm sure they will take place, because this is not going to stop.
You agree, Amit Barua, do you agree with this, or do you hold a different view that perhaps we should give Imran Khan a chance, or should we wait longer to see what else can he deliver on?
I think it's not a question of giving him a chance right now. We were in a particular situation, India and Pakistan. We were very close to a larger conflict. So since this morning, we have pulled back. You saw that comment by President Trump in Hanoi at the failed Korean summit, where he said that you'll expect some good news coming out of India and Pakistan. So you have seen some good news. The first thing is that the Pakistani government, in a very good gesture, decided to release the incarcerated wing commander. I think that's a good gesture and it should be appreciated. So that's one good beginning. And the Indian Air Force came out and welcomed it and gave its own side of whatever had happened, something which I do believe the Indian Air Force and the other bits of the army should have really come out and done yesterday. Why they didn't do it yesterday, we don't really know. So the whole point is that we were in a particular situation after the strike in Balakot at the terrorist camp. So we have now managed to pull back from the brink. That is at least my view as of now. So I think it's a good thing that has happened. So it's not a question of trusting Imran Khan or not trusting Imran Khan. It's not as if there's a great peace process going between India and Pakistan. We know what the issues are. We know for a long time that terrorist groups like the Jaish-e-Mohammed, like the Lashkar-e-Taiba have been based and have operated from their soil. All that is very clear.
Correct.
Now that the government of India chose to take this action, we also have to understand that once you take an action, there can be a response from the other side. And there was a response. And we know in between India and Pakistan, national egos are so strong that if you take some action, you can definitely expect a response from them. So we were in a situation where things could have gone out of control. What Mr. Imran Khan said yesterday was very true. He said that once this chain of events starts, it will not be in my control and neither will it be in the control of Prime Minister Modi. So I think better sense has prevailed, and we should just thank our stars in the subcontinent that these matters have not escalated. So I look at the events of last 48 hours, 72 hours in a very limited prism, that an immediate conflict has been avoided. Of course, the larger problems remain. The attitude of Pakistan towards terror groups, the fact that they are still in a denial mode on these terrorist groups, is a big issue. But I equally feel that our diplomacy has not been strong enough to deliver a message to Pakistan on a regular basis. And I also believe that many television channels in India are doing a great disservice to good relations between India and Pakistan. The kind of propaganda that they are putting out is really, really terrible. And I think that this atmosphere of jingoism that is being created in India, a lot of it is the electronic media is responsible for this jingoistic attitude.
Right.
So my own sense is that as Thursday evening dawns and is coming to an end, that we have pulled back and we are able to discuss some of these issues. I think it's a good thing. Of course, as I said, the issues remain, and we will have to see how to contend with these issues.
Well, on that limited point, though, if I always believe that people should not watch or get carried away with something that they don't agree with or want to watch, and if it's jingoistic and if it's detrimental, the only way to shut it down is to not watch it.
This is sponsored. So the thing is that I'm saying something else. I'm saying that governments have to take considered decisions.
Correct. And I agree with you.
Governments cannot, their responses cannot be determined by a bunch of people asking for something.
Well, let's hope
not.
not.
And as this temperature has risen, we all know we are close to elections. So we shouldn't hide that fact. We had the leader of the BJP saying in Karnataka that these airstrikes are going to win the BJP in Karnataka 22 seats. Now, these kinds of comments really betray a very problematic attitude towards a critical issue of national security. Okay. Let me tell you, this is not the first time India has been in a position. We were in a position in Kargil.
Yes, I take your point. I
just want to add something.
If you can just hold on to it, I will come back to you for sure. I haven't yet gone to one more guest of mine, and Wing Commander Bakshi wanted to come in, but before that, General VP Singh has been patiently waiting by, so let's get his opening comments as well, and then we move on to the next aspect. General Singh, do you agree that situation for now has, we've taken a step back, and which is a good sign? Or do you think if we've gone on and taken the hard line of saying, no, we are going to enter and we are going to destroy the terror camps, if the world or Pakistan doesn't, then perhaps in the coming few months, we will have to resort to a similar strategy again?
Well, my answer to your question is that when Pakistani Prime Minister says something, we will say, we are listening, you deliver now. The whole idea of this strike was that very, very patiently, India as a very responsible state, as a mature democracy, waited for very, very long time for Pakistan to deliver. Imran Khan is not the only Prime Minister. Pakistan's many, many Prime Ministers and Presidents in the past have repeatedly said that there will be no, Pakistani soil will not be used for terrorism. This will not be done, that will not be done, but ultimately it didn't happen that way. So we had taken a very considered decision, gone in and told them in no uncertain term that if you don't deliver, we will make sure that you deliver. As far as trusting Pakistan's Prime Minister is concerned, what do you say about the statesman or a head of the state or a Prime Minister of a state who says, well, if the war starts, it will not be in my control. Have you ever heard this kind of remarks from any other Prime Minister or President of any other state? If you are a Prime Minister or head of state of a state, you ought to have a full control over the events. This shows the helplessness of this Prime Minister.
Yes.
Our Prime Minister never went and told anybody in the world that, well, if the war starts, I will not be able to control it. And what kind of state he is leading? That when terror strikes takes place on a terror camp, he calls the National Command Authority meeting.
Right.
To protect those terrorists. For what? So the point is that we have made our point very clear that our objective is that terrorism from Pakistani soil must stop. And as far as India is concerned, we will do everything within our control to ensure that that happens.
Okay.
And finally, of course, as we speak, the right to respond is still with us. Pakistan has caused, is an aggressor. They have crossed the line of control, and we still reserve the response at our own time and place of choosing.
Right. Wing Commander Bakshi, you wanted to come in? Go ahead, please.
Well, I was just telling that Imran Khan has no choice, because Imran Khan, Pakistan is in two parts, Pakistan Army and Pakistan government. Pakistan government does what exactly Pakistan Army says. And now this all thing has to be followed up. We have selected an aim to eliminate these terrorist camps. Just maintain the aim. We are not raising the ante. And secondly, we are carrying out this aim within POK. We have, our mental state is such that when we attack POK, carry out action, it is Pakistan. It is not Pakistan. We must make it very clear. We are carrying action within our own territory, POK, and I wonder why we did not take this stand earlier. This was our weak political will. So that we have to pay for it. Now at least rectify it. Say POK is Indian territory, and we'll continue clearing it off. Imran Khan or no Imran Khan. Yes, we wish Imran Khan very well. He can have his peace overtures to us. He can continue that. But we will continue what we are doing. Thereafter, if it's acceptable to him, well and good. Not acceptable, still well and good.
Okay, so then the question is that if he is saying, let's sit and talk, and I'm ready to talk about terror, and here is my peace gesture to you, do we then again remind him of the dossiers we've given to him to act against terror, show him the map and say, this is where the camps are, please go and destroy the camps? Or do we just let that be and go about doing what we have already done this time around? Mr. Trigunet, what is your view? Should we just carry out
continued.
yes, Wing Commander Bakshi.
We continue doing it.
I got where you stand on it.
Doing it.
I got where you stand on it. I just wanted to get
that
Mr. Trigunet's view also. Yes.
Yeah, Faye, I fully agree that whatever has been said by other panelists, but someone mentioned about that India has failed in its diplomatic attempt, which is not really true. I mean, if you were to see the kind of overwhelming response in support of India, and the US from the day one has been supporting India's action against the Pakistani terrorist groups and JEM and all that, I mean, that shows it clearly. Today, even the China has, in a way, indirectly reprimanded Pakistan, which used to stand with them. The Saudis have been pressurizing them. The UAE has spoken and pressurized them. So therefore, I think that this is a clear indication and vindication of India's diplomatic prowess and outreach of the government, and that should be actually acknowledged. Pakistan very clearly knows it, and that is why they are in the dock and they are in the corner today. And that all these statements which are coming out is out of the international pressure on Pakistan. And the fact that they understand that India has the resolve to resort to the kind of activity we have already done. And if Pakistan does not mend its ways, or its terrorists continue to operate from there, I think this can be repeated again and again. And that's what they know it. But at the same time, we have provided them, again, although initially I don't think this was the plan, to give the material to Pakistan, which has been shared by many other capitals. But we have given it to them and it has been received. And Imran Khan has said that he has received the dossier. That is why he has offered to jointly investigate also. All these are basically buying time. Now, I feel that we need to continue to maintain the pressure on Pakistan without indulging into the brinkmanship, because that'll yield no result. And Pakistan is currently, could be perhaps under the international pressure. And once the Masood Azhar is declared as a terrorist under the UN listing program, then Pakistan will be forced to take action and put him under arrest or bring him to the book as it is desired by India mainly. And therefore, I feel that we need to continue to maintain the pressure, both internationally and otherwise. And tomorrow, as Mrs. Sushma Swaraj is going to meet a lot of leaders at the OIC, I'm sure that the Islamic community, which used to always stand with Pakistan, will try to put some sense into them.
Yes, well, that is also going to be a significant thing to continue tracking at such a time. But Vinay, so if we are saying that we should continue with our diplomatic efforts and also militarily do what we have just done, in this current setup, when Pakistan has agreed to release our man and send him back, when we have three big Western countries saying that we are going to move at UN for sanctions against Masood Azhar and for action against JEM, where does the evening news briefing stand? This, because it was unprecedented to have, representatives from the three forces together standing there holding the evidence out of Pakistan's aggression.
Well, look, the holding of the evidence had a larger strategic reason. And the larger strategic reason was that the F-16 agreements between the US and Pakistan have an end-use restriction clause in it. And they want to show the world that Pakistan is an untrustworthy country which doesn't honor its commitments given in writing. So that was a strategic purpose. They obviously wanted to show the world that and F-16s have an end-use restriction clause in it because they were meant to be used against the Mujahideen fighting from Afghanistan and not towards India. But obviously we all know that weapons can be fired in any direction. I mean, you really can't control that, and certainly not a rogue nation like Pakistan. But the question is, I think the reason why we did this joint briefing, which was rather uncommon, was that the government doesn't want to be seen to be on the back foot or being a little soft just because there is some amount of reduction in the tension between the two countries. I think they just want to carry on with this strong arm image. This was optics. This was more positioning, and they want that consistency of communication that, look, we mean business. We are not going to this time back off or take it easy just because there are comments coming in from Pakistan, or there are some or you're reaching out to us for talks in peace and so on and so forth. So this was a lot of positioning. I also believe that I think we were expecting or putting a little too much pressure on the armed forces officers who were briefing. We shouldn't expect them to say a lot of things because they are uniformed officers supposed to just follow instructions. I think we need to wait to see what the political leadership says tomorrow maybe on how they perceive this whole event, including, as we were talking earlier, about the so-called gratitude that we should extend to Pakistan for releasing our wing commander. I think there was a question asked to the armed forces today in the press conference that are you grateful to Pakistan? And they didn't answer that question. They simply said, well, Pakistan is just following Geneva Conventions. So that's an operational response. And I think it's unfair to ask them this question because that's not for the army to answer. I think this is for the political leadership to answer. And I guess we will know by tomorrow what is the political leadership's position. If they maintain this hardline position, then we will have to read it slightly differently from how and what happened today with the army.
Yes, because as the armed forces, they would agree, the other nation, even if it's the enemy nation, to also follow the same humanitarian laws and international conventions that we do. Though when it comes to Pakistan, and because of the history, it's often difficult to expect them to do that. Maybe that's why many people are also pleasantly surprised that in less than 2 days, Imran Khan has, made this announcement and releasing. But I bring this question and again because I see a lot of people tonight talking about it and giving Imran Khan the brownie points for what he has done. Mr. Barua, should we be giving him brownie points for releasing the man who's in their custody, which he should any which ways under the Geneva Convention? Or should we say, okay, that's what you had to do, but here is what we have to do. We have to continue our fight against terror, and we will continue to do that.
Well, I think it's not really a question of giving him any brownie points. There are pressures both on us and on Pakistan. And, eventually with the kind of pressure that would have been brought to bear, this definitely, he would have had to be released. But the fact that it's been done in a day and it's been done quickly, I think that is something which needs to be appreciated. The larger point is that this allows us to step back. And it's possible that now with this dossier having been given to Islamabad, and maybe there is some kind of dialogue or some kind of contact between India and Pakistan relating to this issue. So I think that once there was an escalation, there is now that space, diplomatic space has been created to sort of step back. And I think anybody who wishes, to have peace on the subcontinent, and there is no doubt about it in my mind that alarm bells are ringing in international capitals. Both countries are armed with nuclear weapons. Miscalculations can happen, misunderstandings can happen. So this is something which we need to keep in mind. And when you stopped me last time, I was going to say that India has been in such a position earlier. During the Kargil war, we lost two two MiG aircraft during the Kargil war, and there was enormous pressure on the then Prime Minister, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, to hit back. The Air Force also was pushing very hard for a strike back, but at that time, it didn't happen. Then again, when the Mumbai attacks happened, there was a lot of pressure on the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to hit back. So the thing is that when you hit back, you have to have all your options before you, because if you hit back at somebody, the thing is that they can also strike back at you. So you have to make those calculations as well. So Mr. Musharraf climbed the heights of Kargil. He said the Mujahideen were fighting, but actually it was the Northern Light Infantry, and he had to get a way back. He had to how he could climb back. And that option was provided to him by Bill Clinton and his then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. So there was a climb down, and there was a meeting between the DGMOs, and the disengagement happened back in '99. So today we are in a situation where we are justifiably concerned about the terror groups that operate there. We are not clear about what kind of destruction has actually taken place there so far, because no hard evidence has been placed before us. The fact of the matter is that this is not a new thing. I was the Hindus correspondent in Pakistan when Masood Azhar was released in December 1999. Even at that time, the Pakistani authorities denied that this gentleman had ever come into Pakistan. He is the person because of whom the IC-814 hijacking took place. So the fact is that we've known about these groups for a long time. What I'm trying to say is that when I mean diplomatic pressure, I mean sustained diplomatic pressure. It's not about this government or that government. We know about our issues. We know about our national interests. And the fact of the matter is that the Pakistani state has done nothing to address these concerns. They keep talking about the fact that they have been victims of terrorism, but the fact of the matter is that they really are not concerned what the Lashkar-e-Taiba does or what the Jaish-e-Mohammed does. So when there was pressure on General Musharraf, after 9/11, some major people were caught and handed over to the United States. The rest of the international community, talking about the United States and others, they also look at their own interests. So the fact is that when we talk about taking action against terror groups, we have to be very careful in what we do, because we have to understand the stakes for us are also very huge if there is going to be a full-scale war. So we have to really think about all these options and do it in a manner which is where we are well prepared and we know what we are getting into.
Correct.
So my last point on this one is that there is no triumphalism in this.
Yes.
And as I said, these emotions can be whipped up. This is an election year. This is the election year, and we know that political parties use these things to win elections or try to win elections. But I do believe that national security and India's security is too big to be left to political fortunes or for a few seats here and there. So I do hope that there is now time even in India to pull back, both for the ruling party and for the opposition, to sit down and genuinely debate these issues of concern to us, so that we send a signal to Pakistan as well as to the international community that this is not going to be a knee-jerk reaction. Because you know something? There can be more attacks. Let's face it. There could be terror attacks in this country again. So each time we cannot allow terrorist groups to dictate our response. So we have to be measured. We have to think our policies through. So that's the thought that I would like to leave you with right now.
So, all right. Point taken. Let me ask some of our other panelists where they stand on this. General Singh, do you agree that we need to, at this point of time, pull back and also factor in the consequences of if we continue in such a manner?
Yeah, so I heard the other panelists now. As far as pulling back is concerned, we have maintained a position. That position is well known now, that Pakistan has caused aggression, and at this point in time, we reserve the right to react or respond. That stays. As far as this pulling back and other things are concerned, what pulling back are we talking about? You only mentioned in the beginning 35 places there was a ceasefire violation. So are you trying to tell that, okay, the ceasefire violations will carry on, we will not respond? Is that pulling back? What is pulling back is that while Prime Minister of Pakistan has given an assurance, kind of a that they want to talk peace, yes, we also want to talk peace, but they have to deliver. So we need to maintain our pressure. We need to maintain and guard our territorial integrity. We need to respond to Pakistan in the strongest term whenever any violation or any violence takes place. After having done all that, as we have demonstrated, that we will also go across the LC and punish those causing terrorism in our country. Thereafter, we are fully with them. We also want to talk peace. We give you a chance, but we will watch your steps. And definitely, we never said we will step back from peace talking. One more point I want to add. As Prime Minister has said on more than one occasion, that terror and talks cannot go on simultaneously. So the precondition is very simple, that right now, from this day onward, start demonstrating your will and actual action on ground to convince India and the rest of the world that terrorist outfits, infrastructure of terrorism in Pakistan is being dismantled. If that is happening or that is going to happen, we are always for peace. Always for peace.
Right. General Thapyal, I wanted to come to you also on this aspect. The fact of the matter is, from 1999, just a few months before the Kargil conflict broke out, when Prime Minister Vajpayee and Nawaz Sharif were sitting across the table and talking about peace and signing pacts, obviously their soldiers and their general were entering and invading our territory. And since 1999, that's happened repeatedly. It's happened under the Vajpayee era, it's happened under Manmohan Singh era. It now seems that the government is sending us a message that they're not going to do that anymore, that they're not going to sit across this government and have conversation until there is significant action against terror. And if Pakistan doesn't do it, we will do it. We will go inside and do it. Do you think the time is to continue with that? Or after the last two rounds, we've seen what kind of a warlike situation we've entered into. So it is now time to step back and say, okay, let's wait and see what Pakistan does next.
So, to watch what Pakistan is going to do next, we don't have to step back. The vigil has to be maintained, the preparedness has to be maintained, the will to strike again against terrorists has to be maintained. So, the bottom line is that Pakistan must act against terrorists, and that act has to be verifiable, it has to be transparent, it has to be seen to be done. By merely they're saying that yes, we are taking action, and then terrorist groups, sprout with different names and that kind of a thing. We've fallen into that trap many times, in the past. That must not happen. So somebody was, one of the panelists who was mentioning that let's step back and all that. I don't think that should be done or could be done. The credibility of the government itself is going to suffer if that kind of a thing happens. So I don't think they're going to do that. and let us see how Pakistan
But there is merit to
proceeds
the
hereafter.
there is merit to the
reserve
case.
the right to strike.
Yes, General,
Sorry?
there is merit to the case that often what we see happens with the armed forces is that the politicians and the governments use us and use the armed forces for their benefit. And, you know, there is a lot of grandstanding, there is posturing, they will, we've seen multiple times the entire forces have been mobilized, moved to the borders and then brought back. A lot of politicking also happens at the cost of a soldier's life and then you're left to fend for yourself.
But in this particular case, you would have noticed that only the air arm has been used to dismantle the camp in Balakot. Only the rest of the army is on alert. So is the Air Force and the Navy. No forward deployment has taken place. The strike formations haven't moved. It is not like Operation Parakram, you know, where the entire Indian army deployed and strike formations also moved forward and mine laying was done and that kind of a thing. So I think this time the response has been very measured and very calibrated.
Okay, Wing Commander Bakshi, go ahead please, you wanted to come in.
What I was trying to bring out is that having decided, we must continue with the good work we have started. Now that we have changed our political will, we must continue starting it. We are not raising the ante, as I earlier said. Why are we hesitating? And there is nothing called pullback or there is nothing called pulling back. We are doing SOP. We have to make this an SOP. And let me tell you one thing. Why are we in this quandary is our doctrines were never there. Internal or external security doctrine were never written. This confusion is part of the 70 years folly. We had never had a doctrine. We must sit down now, write an honest doctrine as to how POK has to be taken until we spell it out. And secondly, let the armed forces polish up their act by having one command and control entire Kashmir area. And that all paramilitary forces, security agencies must be together. Until we do that, we will be waffling once again as we have been waffled up till now.
Okay, completely running out of time, but I just wanted a quick word in from Vinay to wrap this up. Vinay, your thoughts before we wrap the show?
Well, I mean, my only thought, and that will be eternal optimist, the thought is that, look, for once, Pakistan must understand that instead of claiming and pretending to be a victim of terror, they need to perhaps accept. I guess this can happen with people putting the pressure on the government, and I guess not the other way around, that this doesn't take you anywhere. I mean, look at your economy. You're one of the worst in the world currently. Bangladesh has overtaken you in many, many parameters, a country that was actually born out of them. And I think that rationality, if it seeps into the population, I think somebody else on a guest show earlier said that when they went into Pakistan, the youngsters, on a visit recently, the youngsters there were all talking about India's IITs and IIMs. And I guess that's the kind of pressure that perhaps needs to increase within Pakistan for them to realize that this whole game of terror machinery and, you know, trying to export everything around them is a self-defeating exercise. This will only take them down. It's never going to help them in any which way.
Well, what has definitely happened is between our muscular policy and our military action and our diplomatic actions, the way we've built up the support from across the world, we have managed to make Pakistan take this decision to release Wing Commander. Okay, I'm running out of time, but General Singh wanted to come in. So quickly, I'll give you 30 seconds, sir, and then I definitely have to wrap up.
Yeah. I had a small observation on the comment that you made that countries they use armed forces. My point is very simple. India is a very, very responsible, a very matured democracy. Armed forces are an instrument of state power, and therefore they are used or they are employed to secure the national objectives. And therefore it is not for politicking. It is the objectives the nation selects that armed forces give them, secure them that objective. Indian armed forces particularly are known to demonstrate their capacity, capability, and of course will to achieve the political objectives set by the government of the day and indeed do whatever they are required to do. It's not a tool for politics or something like that. That's my observation. That's the point I wanted to make.
I do agree with you on this, that our forces are definitely capable. In fact, what they have shown in this recent action is something that we've been capable of doing for a long time, except that there wasn't any political will to allow our forces to carry out such an action. So when the government decided, our forces went and did exactly what they are trained to do and they are capable to do. My other point, though, was more to talk about what happens on a regular basis. What is it that we are witnessing in Kashmir? Sure, everybody wants to sit tonight and talk about war and has a view about whether we should go to war or shouldn't go to war. But why is it that we don't talk about it on a daily basis when our soldiers are literally in a proxy war, in a conflict zone, and are being targeted and are being killed on a regular basis in Kashmir and a few other parts of our country? This conversation has to go on even then. If we have to look at this problem, we have to find a resolution for the long term. So while tonight we sit and pray for speedy and safe return of Wing Commander Abhinandan, we also have to think about how every single soldier who's today in Kashmir, his safety can also be ensured. Do we really give them a free hand when it is needed to deal with the problems on ground, or do we change our stand depending on the political situation? I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us tonight. Of course, all of us are waiting for the safe return of Wing Commander Abhinandan. But I would hope that if the government has taken this hard line of saying we will fight against terror and we will go in and destroy those terror camps, then it sticks to this policy and it doesn't get reduced to this one single time that you did this just in the run-up to elections. The fight against terror must continue. That doesn't really mean that you get embroiled into a war with Pakistan. What we have shown in the last few days is exactly the balance that needs to be maintained between military and diplomacy that has to be carried out with multiple nations. Completely out of time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.